Well, it's a winter wonderland out there, but it's a long time coming, and it might be short-lived. It's end of January, and we've only had real snow on the ground for about 2 weeks. Sled is up here, hasn't been out yet this season. What's today? The 22nd? But we're not working on the sled today. If you saw my last video, I was replacing the starter in my dad's Kawasaki Teryx. And then just after I do that, he goes and buys a new machine. So he wanted me to do a few upgrades on it. Rather than do a step-by-step, there wasn't anything too spectacular about it. I'm just going to do an overview of what was done. We put on some signal lights, windshield wipers, horn, and yeah, so if that sounds interesting to you, keep watching. So I just got done the last bit of work on this machine, which is my dad's new Kawasaki Teryx 4S. And I cleaned the shop because it was a disaster, and I got a couple other things going on other than the sled. This thing right here, this is KRX 250, belongs to Jay. I can't remember what year it is, but it's an oldie. We're going to be doing a full sort of refurbishment on this machine. So if that's of interest to you, check back often. Even better, hit the subscribe button and hit that notification button, and you'll get to know when a new video comes out. So, like I said, the work's already done here. I'm just going to do an overview of what was done. It's a brand new machine. It came with the bumper and the roof and the windshield on from the dealer. But no winch, because the winch that the dealer had on there, my dad didn't really like. It was a little too small. Both poundage. I think it was a 45. This one is a 5500. But it also had a 3-inch drum, whereas this is a 5.5 or 6-inch drum, which my dad prefers because he likes to have a long winch line. And so we have crammed 80 feet of synthetic 1/4 inch on there, which should do them. But I'll get back to the winch later. The first thing I did, there was a hole on the dash panel where they must have installed the winch remote plug in this switch slot, but they had to drill a couple of holes to mount it, and then when they took them off, those holes were visible even with a switch plate cover on there. So you can still kind of see it there. I did a little plastic welding that turned out not too bad and filled that hole in. And then I was able to get started fresh. The next thing was signal lights. My dad uses his machine to kind of tour around the neighborhood, and he likes to have signal lights on. I picked up a signal light kit that came with 2 amber on each side for the front, 2 reds each side for the rear, and it also came with hazard switch, turn switch, and horn switch. It also came with these indicator lights here for the inside. So they're wired up, obviously, to only be on with the key. The signal lights Pretty self-explanatory there, but everything's working good. The hazard switch is kind of neat to have, but I had to do a little bit of trickery to get the hazard switch to work with the wiring for the signal light, because if not, it would feed back into here. So no matter if you went left or right, the signal would feed back through the hazard switch and all the lights would come on. So I had to throw in some diodes to make this work without having to run a whole lot of different wiring. So basically the signal light and the hazard lights are interconnected to the same wiring, but there's some diodes keeping the signals from feeding back. The horn, we installed a different horn than what came with the package. So yeah, that's so that my dad can announce his arrival. So I'm just gonna put on the hazards here and you can see what the lights look like on the outside. They're nice bright LEDs, even though they're small, especially with having two for each corner. If you only had one, you'd really have to be careful with your placement, or you're likely going to have angles of view that the lights won't be visible. But with two at each corner, it's plenty. The most daunting, nerve-wracking part, of course, was drilling holes in brand new plastics. And there's just enough room under these plastics, because there is actually a second piece under here. But basically the signal light is wiring, although they don't stick out at the back very much. It's in this little channel right here, which turned out really good because all the wiring is hidden except for up in this corner here. There's a little bit of exposed wire. I don't know if you can see the light very good there, but so yeah, I'm quite happy with the way those turned out. I had the airbox and everything out to do the work because accessing the battery on these things is notoriously a pain in the butt. So while we had that off, we put in a larger battery. Instead of this 270 cold cranking battery, we put in a 30 amp hour 400 cold cranking battery, which is exactly like what was in his previous Teryx. And this is the wiring, horn, obviously, signal lights, etc. all run up into here and draw power from the accessory spots in here. So in here, there's a two 10 amp accessory fuses. So I've tapped into there, adding in some additional fusing. And this is the flasher relay for the signal lights. And additionally up here, electrical, we've got the solenoid for the winch and a wireless remote for the winch. As well, I like to put on all my machines a dash mounted for those quick little pulls, and also for the day when your wireless remote is inevitably dead. And when Murphy's Law happens, and not only is your wireless remote dead and your dash mount switch broken, you can still plug in the corded remote here. So the winch itself is a Princess Auto special, but I run this winch on my high lifter. It's a 5,500 pound, and if you're lucky, you get them on sale for $199. This one here Wasn't on sale, but it was still only $269. Now it doesn't come with the synthetic line. That was another Amazon purchase. And we also had to purchase the mount for the Kawasaki. Again, Amazon. The only problem that I had with this particular install is because of the way the Kawasaki bumper is and the mount. Terminals on the winch need to be in this vertical kind of position. The winch itself is mounted on a bit of an angle. That's because of the Kawasaki mount. But this winch comes normally with the terminals in the horizontal position, which a lot of winches do. But most winches, you just undo these two bolts here and rotate the cap, and you can go from a horizontal to a vertical. Unfortunately, not this winch. You can take these bolts out and rotate it, but they did not drill and tap 2 additional holes for that. So after a lot of hemming and hawing, I just said, to heck with it. I took it apart, drilled and tapped it myself, put it back together. Problem solved. And while doing that, I had a good chance to look inside this winch, and it's actually pretty well built. It's a nice size motor, nice brushes. Like, it's sealed really well. There's little O-rings behind all the screws and everything. So a little extra work that most people would not be interested in getting into, but it wasn't a big deal for me, and it was the easiest solution to the mounting problem. The other thing we did was put on these windshield wipers. We picked up these wipers, which are similar to the ones that he had on his older unit, and with a little modification, we've got them installed and working good. The one challenge was the holes in the windshield surround. Those are the holes that were put in there by the factory for their windshield kit. They don't really leave a lot of space for the shaft of the wiper. So the roof in its original position would actually hit the wiper here. So I raised it up about a ½ an inch from where it was, which is why we have these straps here, which are a little bit longer than the stock straps holding the roof on. And unfortunately, all I had was some red heat shrink. If I'd had some black heat shrink, that would have looked a lot nicer. That's going to bug me every time I look at it. But that solved the problem nicely. And also, another little hack was the gap in here with the stock roof and this windshield. Was quite large, a lot of air gap, especially in the middle here where the roof bumps up. There was quite a large air gap there. In the colder months, it is unfavorable. So I took a chunk of pipe insulation, this stuff right here, and it was the perfect fit to just tuck up in there. It's quite tight here at the edges, a little bit looser in the middle, but it expands up and fills that gap quite nicely. So that's just a little quick little fix to keep it a little warmer in there. And I just had this stuff lying around, so yeah, that is about it, I think. So this thing is ready to go back to its new home. I'm sure my dad is anxious to play with his new toy. So hopefully you found some of this interesting. And if you liked it, please think about subscribing or hitting that like button. If you have any questions, feel free to comment. And thanks for watching.